I should explain first that I've actually attended many of the early Gathering for Gardeners. And as a matter of fact, one of the, actually the first time I ever performed at one of the Gathering for Gardener conventions, a very, very young Scott Kim came up to me afterwards, he designs all our logos, and he gifted me something I thought you'd like to see. If we could switch over to the camera. You'll notice it's a picture of a hand, which is part of my brand. You'll see that on my show Saturday night. But what's interesting is this turned out to be one of his first three-way inversions, because not only is it a hand, if you look carefully, it spells my name, M-E-I-R. But what makes this even more interesting, I said it's a three-way inversion. If you turn it upside down, it now spells my last name, which is Y-E-D-I-D. And I just thought you'd like to look at this. But enough about me. We're here to talk about Kreskin. Let me explain. We were supposed to have Kreskin here. We were going to have a lengthy interview about his life and his career. Unfortunately, about 6 weeks ago, he fell and he broke a bone in his arm, but that did not stop him. He was excited about being here. We were going to still come down. He started physical therapy last week, and this past Friday, at the physical therapy, they gave him a weight on a string that he had to move around. And they told him to do 30 reps, but he's an overachiever. They left the room. He decided, well, 30, I could do a lot more than 30. So after about 100 of these reps with his broken arm, he fell and he hurt we could go back to the slides, to the laptop, by the way. He hurt his back. His leg, he could barely walk, but he was still going to come here. We had a wheelchair set up at the airport, but this weekend he fell again, unfortunately, and it was much more serious. And when an 89-year-old guy, he just turned 89 last month, falls twice in a week, the doctors swarm in trying to figure out why. And he's currently in the hospital. They expect to have him out in a few more days, but they're doing a whole battery of tests. So at the last minute, they conned me into doing a retrospective of his life. So we may as well begin with this. The audio? Audio.
Ability to read minds, project thoughts, and see the unseen. His amazing insights have got him banned from casinos, hired by police, and have demonstrated to the most hardened skeptics that mental power is real. He's the Amazing Kreskin.
Kreskin, you're amazing. What is going on?
Look at this.
Are we haunted?
I'm tapping into the energy of their collective unconscious minds. And it's literally an uncontrollable phenomenon.
Kreskin.
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 Kreskin. Kreskin.
Greatest mentalist, the Amazing Kreskin.
How do you do that? I still can't.
Kreskin, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I'm not kidding you. I don't know how he does it. Robin, did you just see that?
Yes. The Amazing Kreskin is in town.
The world's greatest mentalist, the Amazing Kreskin.
Throughout his career, the Amazing Kreskin has appeared on thousands of television shows, including 118 appearances on The Mike Douglas Show, 98 appearances on The Merv Griffin Show, 88 appearances on The Tonight Show. He was featured in many TV commercials. He invented board games. He has written 21 books. He has started his own television series called The Amazing World of Kreskin. And The Great Buck Howard was a major theatrical movie that was based on his life. And there's so much more we can find out about the Amazing Kreskin.
The Amazing Kreskin. The Amazing Kreskin. The Amazing Kreskin.
The Amazing Kreskin is in town.
Howdy, I'm Kreskin. And I've never claimed to be a psychic or a fortune teller. Indeed, everything I do is accomplished by perfectly natural and scientific means. And yet on my program, The Amazing World of Kreskin, we investigate man's greatest enigma, the mysteries of the human mind. So join me, if you will, Wednesday nights at 7:30 here on Television 9 for the magic of thought, both yours and mine.
So when you begin talking about Kreskin, we have to start when he was very, very young. He started out as a magician, believe it or not. At around the age of 5, he started performing magic shows all over New Jersey. He never stopped performing, by the way. He actually had a show scheduled for tomorrow night at a club in New Jersey. So what happened next is he went to school performing a lot of shows. He went to college. He went to Seton Hall, where he majored in psychology. I believe he received his PhD, and he actually practiced as a clinical psychologist for about 10 or 15 years. Throughout that time, he continued to perform all the time, developing his show. He added the psychology that he learned in college into his shows. As a psychologist, he used hypnotherapy, and he applied hypnosis into his shows as well, combining all of these elements, all of his skills, into a very, very unique type of performance. He got so popular, by the way, that he ended up giving up the psychology completely and going full-time pro. His main show was in colleges, by the way. It's amazing how many people have seen him perform at their college. Out of curiosity, how many of you have seen Kreskin perform at a college? Which is amazing. Because whenever I share a photo of him on social media, it constantly people, oh, I saw him in college, I saw him in college, but I guess my following is over the age of 60. He started touring a lot, appearing on a lot of TV shows, and I wanted to show you a video that he did on The Tonight Show, which can explain some stuff.
An amazing month-long tour of New Zealand and Australia. This is his new book entitled The Amazing World of Kreskin. Would you welcome The Amazing Kreskin?
Title, right?
How are you, Amazing?
That, you know, you really start something. I can't go on an airline. Everybody says, be amazing. How are you today?
Of course. What are we going to do tonight? What do you want to talk about?
3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, I travel all over the world, and I've been called in by a number of law enforcement agencies in the Dallas and Houston area. I'm thinking, I've never been involved in crimes. I don't solve crimes. I'm not one of these psychometrists who hold objects and describe people that were at the scene of the crime. In most of those incidents, as I talk about in the book, you never hear how well they did. They didn't do too well in retrospect, but of course the headlines is the psychic came into town and tried to help out.
What's interesting here about that clip is he ended up actually consulting for a lot of police stations and FBI in helping them solve crimes and profile criminals. And he's done this a lot over the years, but what I find most interesting about this video is when he appeared on The Tonight Show, on that particular Tonight Show, his name was just Kreskin. It was not the Amazing Kreskin as people got to know him later. It was Johnny Carson who coined the phrase amazing. He was making fun. He called Kreskin amazing, and he was on there a lot, and he always referred to him as amazing, and it was a running joke. You know, today, you were only 90% amazing. Or the next time, are you going to be better than 50% amazing? And this was a running gag, and everybody started calling him amazing, amazing, and that's how his name became the Amazing Kreskin, which is kind of interesting. The other interesting thing is, how did he come up with the name Kreskin? His real name is Kresge, Kresge. And that was hard to pronounce, so he decided the G sounds like a K anyway. So he decided Kresge, but there's a Houdini connection here. Now, Houdini came up with his name because he liked, there's a magician, Robert Houdin, a French magician who's considered the father of modern magic. Houdini worshipped him, and he took his name, Houdin, and he added an I to it and became Houdini. Well, Kreskin did almost the same thing with his name, Kresk, and he added the last two letters of Robert Houdin's name to his to create Kreskin, which I thought was interesting, but maybe I'm the only one who does. But speaking of Carson, let's take a look at this other Carson clip.
Now, this anniversary show would not be complete without an appearance by that great visitor from the East, the all-seeing, all-knowing, all-telling, all-omniscient, famous seer, sage, soothsayer, and former cultural attaché to Sheriff Lobo, Karnak the Magnificent.
so this is interesting. Karnak was Johnny Carson. How many of you remember Johnny Carson? Okay, a little bit more than saw Kreskin at university. So one of Johnny Carson's most famous skits was Karnak the Magnificent. Well, it turns out Karnak was based on Kreskin doing predictions. And that trip at the beginning, which was so famous, he always tripped on the way to the podium, it turns out one of Kreskin's first TV appearances were on the Steve Allen Show. And Johnny Carson, who was a magician, heard, oh, we're going to have a mentalist on the Steve Allen Show. I got to watch this. So this was one of Kreskin's first TV appearances. There were lights in his face. He didn't know what to do. And he got blinded for a second, and he tripped, and he fell flat on his face on the Steve Allen Show. And Carson thought it was hysterical and decided to add it to his own routine. So it's interesting, if you look at his 89-year career, how he influenced culture in so many different ways. Now, I should talk, I mentioned hypnosis a while ago. He used hypnosis in his shows. He used hypnosis as a psychologist. But at some point, he got disillusioned with what hypnosis is and what a hypnotic trance is. And he's been an advocate since that time, dispelling the theory that there is such a thing as a hypnotic trance. He felt this was all about suggestion, suggestibility. You could make people believe almost anything you want by the power of suggestion, and there was no such thing as a hypnotic trance. When he started saying this, he actually got sued, and he ended up in court having to prove that there was no such thing as a hypnotic trance. And he ended up winning the court case. And if you remember, half of you would remember at that time there were a lot of psychologists that were getting repressed memories from people and trying to put that into courts. Well, he was a big advocate that you can't really do that because it is a power of suggestion. So even though he continued to use these hypnotic type of presentations in his shows, he was really just talking about the power of suggestions. And some of what you saw in the earlier clip was he was suggesting and getting people to do what he wanted them to do. So he continued performing, appearing on TV and talk shows and all that stuff, and he ended up getting his own TV series. Between 1972 and 1975, he had a weekly TV series that was shot in Canada and was syndicated in the United States. That series included a lot of interviews with a lot of academics, believe it or not. A lot of scientists appeared on that show, a lot of celebrities. It was a combination of magic and psychology and mentalism. It was a talk show format, but it was also very entertaining. A lot of those episodes can be seen on Hulu, and there are people that are on those shows that are amazing that you wouldn't see otherwise. Walter Gibson, 2 interviews, 2 different shows. YouTube also has a few of those TV shows on, and I think there's a DVD on Amazon that has a bunch of them as well you could check out. So at some point, though, his name became integral, thank you, of pop culture. I remember as a kid doing the TV crossword puzzles because that's the only one I could finish. And his name would be popping up in those crossword puzzles on a regular basis, once or twice a month. And they continue to appear in crossword puzzles. His name started getting mentioned in all kinds of things, sitcoms, movies, sports events. You know what? Let's take a look.
Blackstone's Byron Ween is Wall Street's Amazing Kreskin. We decided to give you that title.
That's okay, why. Kreskin could read my mind. You think you know what goes on in the complexities of my...
Well, unfortunately, you don't have to be the Amazing Kreskin to figure out that these elements are going to keep re-emerging in our society until we sort of come to terms with exercising.
You might want to check under those nice fluffy pillows.
Look at there, what do you know? The kid's a regular little curly-haired Kreskin.
I'm having a Kreskin-like intuition here. Is she a redhead?
Come on, Kreskin, figure it out.
I I'm going to fold. That's a good fold.
There you go.
Keep having your fun while I suffer up there in first class.
Oh, my heart goes out to you.
Oh, stick it, Kreskin. I'm sitting next to a cheese-eating racist.
Why do I sense there's an offer in the air?
Look at him. He's got a sense. What are you, Kreskin?
Amy, obviously, because she even heard the name. She wouldn't know that. She's not Kreskin.
The guys in gangs call him Kreskin.
Who's Kreskin?
He knows where, he knows when, he knows who. Before it's even happened, he knows what's happened.
Right now, your brainwaves are giving the amazing Kreskin a pounding headache.
What are you some kind of amazing Kreskin?
And although he saved the girl, we think Brooks is gonna hurl when this chick does her amazing Kreskin act. Oh, no.
Yes, he even made it into some songs. But, you know, how does that happen? How do you become a household name? He became so recognizable, they also did a series of TV commercials with him. Target, the department store, they hired Kreskin to do a series of commercials because the one piece that he was most famous for was, and he continues to do it till today, is at the end of the show he has a committee of audience members hide his paycheck. And his job is now to find that check without any clues. And if he can't find that check, he does not get paid. Over his life, he's done about 25,000 shows, we estimate. And I think he lost his check less than 20 times, maybe 12 times he couldn't find that check. But they used that concept for these TV commercials for Target. As Target was opening stores all over the United States, they'd have commercials running in those Target markets of Kreskin trying to find this store opening. And he'd be on helicopters and planes, and every few days another commercial would break out until he finally would find this store opening and invite everybody to come. But I didn't want to bring those commercials here, but I did find two that I think you might enjoy.
What are you getting, Norm?
The usual short stack double bacon.
I see you're tired of the same old thing.
Hey, aren't you Kreskin?
The amazing Kreskin. And here's a tip from this Jersey boy. Get in the game.
New bonus match from New Jersey Lottery. It's another chance to win. Add bonus match to your pick 3 or pick 4 numbers. Match just one number and cash in right away.
I sense you could win up to $250.
That's amazing, Kreskin.
Now you got the name, so get in the game.
Play new bonus match from New Jersey Lottery.
At the count of 3, you're going to be a chicken. 1.
Is this dangerous?
No, you don't even need that insurance. 2.
What insurance?
If you're sick, you miss work, they pay you cash. 3. You're a chicken. Now, you're a duck.
Affleck. Ask about it at work.
I think he also did a Geico commercial and a bunch of others. But what's interesting about these commercials is he's playing himself, which means that the advertiser decided that everybody or almost everybody that's going to watch these commercials are going to know who Kreskin is. That's very rare even for celebrities to appear in commercials as themselves. And the reason I mention that really is I understand that in universities now they use the Kardashians to teach marketing on how to build brands. And if you think about it, Kreskin has done the same thing before the internet. He became a household name on his own. But even more interesting than that is I asked Kreskin, how is it that on TV shows, people are saying, oh, every time somebody makes a prediction, I'm Kreskin, you're Kreskin, that you just saw, how did that happen? How did you create that? Because believe it or not, just like the university that started studying the Kardashians, people in show business for decades have been trying to figure out how Kreskin got to the point where he got. I mean, you can't name too many other or any other celebrity who's being used on a regular basis as part of like the vocabulary of our society. And so I asked him, how did you do this? And he said, well, I didn't do this on purpose, but I always looked for opportunities to take advantage of, opportunities where I could connect to my brand. And he still does this every day. He's a workaholic. Up until recently, was jogging 5 miles every single morning. When he when he turned 80, he started walking 1.5 miles every morning. That's how he clears his head. He reads 3 books a night, believe it or not. He reads newspapers, magazines all throughout the day. He's always looking for angles which connect to his brand. If you follow his YouTube video, you'll see him commenting about everything that's going on now and how it relates to him. And doing that for so long, sometimes you can get lucky and become extremely, extremely famous. But I also thought I'd share a few secrets about Kreskin that not too many people know. And we're almost done. Now, one of the people who inspired Kreskin more than anybody else, who he speaks about often, who he later befriended, was Arthur Godfrey. And if he was here, he would talk about Arthur a lot. He's also an expert piano player. I saw him years ago. I saw him at Carnegie Hall. Skitch Henderson used to have an annual Halloween show, and he used to have Kreskin there, and Kreskin would play the piano. Kreskin is a huge supporter of animals and animal rights. He currently lives with 4 cats, and he's never lived without animals. As a matter of fact, before he moved to his current location, I met some of his neighbors, and they were all very upset because his love of animals. He hired people to feed deer in his backyard. And every morning there'd be 10 to 20 deers in that neighborhood because he wanted to feed them. He felt animals are innocent and they need our love and protection. Now, even though Kreskin is a skeptic, and you've seen him say that a few times, and he's and a mentalist, a skeptic and a mentalist. He's also a very a spiritual man, and he's also, some of you may be surprised to hear this, he's also religious. He regularly attends church every Sunday when he's in town. He also has stalkers. He does have stalkers. I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 of them snuck in here today. But being part of our culture, he also invites imitation. Let's take a look at a short clip of Jim Carrey impersonating Kreskin.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have actually bent the spoon using merely the powers of my incredible mind. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? Now, the Kreskin Challenge. I will give $10,000 to anyone in this room who can duplicate or surpass what I'm doing here tonight. Is there anybody in the room who is versed in the art of psychic phenomenon?
Yo, Kreskin! Yeah, let me get on this calendar.
You want to do this?
Yeah.
You would like to come in here and show us your stuff?
Yeah, let me get on it.
Wow! Isn't that wild? Oh, you poor sucker!
So once again, for someone to imitate him in a comedy show, he must think that everybody knows who he is. And I keep coming back to that. Now, probably the best, and not probably, absolutely the best impersonation of Kreskin I've ever seen is by John Malkovich, and who starred in a 2008 movie, The Great Buck Howard. That movie was based on Kreskin's life and career. Of course, it was dramatized. And I thought you might enjoy watching the trailer for that movie. Remember, John Malkovich is playing Kreskin.
You do know who I am.
Buck did the Tonight Show 61 times.
You have to say with Johnny Carson, not the nitwit who's on there now.
I quit law school determined to do something different with my life, but that still didn't prepare me for my new job with Buck Howard.
Which way you can toss my salad when you get back to the hotel?
I don't know what you're doing here. The auditoriums we played in were old, usually half full, but Buck didn't seem to notice.
Welcome to Cincinnati!
I love this town.
Welcome to Wausau, Wisconsin.
I love this town. I love this town. I'm Buck Howard.
Ow.
The minute he came out on stage, he was in his element. Everything he did, he made the impossible seem possible.
And your number is 17.
Oh my God!
I mean, my college roommate was managing a multi-million-dollar hedge fund, and here I was helping Buck Howard with his benefits, starring Gary Coleman and the guy from the Police Academy movies. Strange thing, though, it was kind of cool.
This spring.
You've got to quit this job. You can do better. It is over for Buck, and everyone knows it but him.
What are you going to do now, kid?
I might fail miserably, but I have to at least try.
Good luck.
Comes the story of two men.
I have a boyfriend. Oh, forget I said it.
Looking to make a comeback.
We need to get you some attention right now.
If they need to see something, I've got something I can show them. It is enormous.
The legendary mentalist Buck Howard, best known for his many appearances on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, put some 800 people to sleep.
Suddenly, Buck was hip.
Presenting the great Buck Howard.
Magnolia Pictures presents.
There was a long period of time where I wasn't hearing much about you, Buck. Suddenly you're back. You're everywhere. You're living in the fast lane.
I have to say, Colin, I've always been hip.
It's Conan. It's Conan.
John Malkovich, Colin Hanks, Emily Blunt, with Steve Zahn and Tom Hanks.
I would like to dedicate this next song to Sulu from Star Trek. May the Force be in you.
The great Buck Howard.
I love this town!
So I actually loved that movie probably more than anybody else because I knew Kreskin. And this was Kreskin in this movie. So all the mannerism, John was incredible. But how does a movie, I mean, it's not all Kreskin, obviously. They made it into a dramatic movie. But how does a person get a movie, not a documentary, but a major movie with superstars in it made about his life? Well, it turns out that Sean McGinley, who wrote and directed this movie, was his road manager. And while serving as his road manager, he took notes on everything that Kreskin did, and he also listened to all of Kreskin's stories, and he put them all together into a script, and he convinced these people to invest millions of dollars in making this movie. Now, one funny thought, I didn't bring this clip, but a few months, and oh, by the way, I should mention David Blaine, the magician, also appeared in this movie, and there were a lot of cameos in this movie. And a few months after I saw the movie, I get a call from Kreskin, and he asks me, hey, do you know David Blaine? And I said, yeah, I know him, but you know him too. I saw you shake his hand on TV. And somehow I remembered seeing John Malkovich shake David Blaine's hand in the movie and re-remembered it as it was Kreskin actually shaking his hand. I thought that was funny, but I guess I was the only one. So one thing before we end this is throughout all the video clips, you saw him shake hands with people. He has a very, very, very violent handshake. You saw Carson didn't want to shake his hand. You saw on those old video clips Jimmy Fallon going nuts. You saw in a movie clip, it's like, people were complaining, my hand hurts, So that's just been his trademark all these years. There's even an annual handshaking day, and he always appears on videos on TV during that time. Many, many years ago, Kreskin and I used the same barber shop on 45th Street and Broadway. And it was an open store, ground level, and I was getting a haircut one day. And Kreskin walks by, he sees me inside, and he decides to come in and say hello. Now, there's a guy with scissors, sharp scissors against my head, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if he starts shaking my hands, those scissors are just going to pierce through my head. So I immediately put my hands underneath the cloth so he can't shake my hand. And he comes, hey, Meir, and he starts banging on my shoulder, hey, with the same kind of violence. But luckily, I survived. But at the movie premiere on the red carpet, Tom Hanks goes over to Kreskin and he says, we had to hire a chiropractor for the crew because when John Malkovich was practicing your handshake on everybody in the crew, everybody was complaining about having sore arms and shoulders. And in closing, I'd like to say that after knowing the amazing Kreskin for the past 45 years, which is, I guess, half his life, I can say unequivocally that he really is an amazing person, and I hope all of you get a chance to meet him one day.